Okay, so for our inequality symbol, you know, when we were solving inequalities, everything was equal, and it was always just one single value that they were equal to. With inequalities, it's a range of values. Okay, you have an infinite number of possible solutions that x could possibly be. Okay, every number in the existence that is less than this value, or every number in its existence that's greater than this value. There's an infinite amount of numbers out there. Okay, so when we start off with them, we have our symbol less than. So we typically know it as the less than symbol. So we already know our word is less than. Another one that we could say is like it is fewer than. So if you see fewer than, that's representing our less than symbol. If you see something that says it is smaller than, then we're focusing on the less than symbol. It is under. So if it is under this value, that's less than. It is below this value, that would be a less than. Okay, so these are some very common phrases that we use to represent just the less than part of our symbol. Okay, then we've got the greater than portion. Okay, so that's basically the direct opposite of everything that we're seeing here. Okay, so obviously is greater than would be one of them, but then we go into that instead of is fewer than, it's more than. So if you see the terms more than, that represents that it's a greater than. Instead of smaller, we would say it is what? Bigger or larger. Yeah, either one of those. It is bigger, and I'm going to say larger in parentheses. Either one of those would be fine. Okay, instead of saying it is under, we would say it is above or over, right? Above would be the opposite of below. Under and over. Okay, so it is over, it is above, and then it has another little unique one to it, that it exceeds. So like when you guys took your equations test, and I said I was very pleasantly surprised by your scores. You exceeded the expectations of what I thought would happen. Okay, you went above what I expected. That is the exceeds. It's greater. Okay, then we've got less than or equal to. Okay, so for less than or equal to, not only does it have to be smaller than a certain value, but it could also be exactly equal to that certain value. Okay, so we have some very unique phrases for that. Is at most. That is one that a lot of kids get mixed up on because they see the word most and they automatically think greater, because most kind of means like more. But when we're saying it's at most this value, like when I tell you, hey, when you're doing your IXL, I will at most accept an 80. 80 is the most that I will accept for your IXL. Okay, so it can be equal to 80 or it can be under 80. Okay, another one is no more than. So we know more than means greater than. If it is no more than, then it's going to be the opposite, less than or equal to. Okay, and then we have a maximum. Maximum. Maximum also would mean less than or equal to. This is the maximum number of people that are allowed in the building. So it could be equal to that amount of people, or it could be smaller than that amount of people. Okay, and then we have its direct opposites, which is the greater than or equal to symbols. Okay, with greater than or equal to, you can have is at least. And this is something that you see a lot. You must be at least this height to ride this ride. You must be at least, 18 to be able to vote. There are these limitations that they have We use bare minimum, so minimum's another word that we would be using, that allows you to know it could be equal to that value or greater than that value. There is no less than. So is no less than also means that it's greater than or equal to. And then minimum. You must receive a minimum score of, whatever it might be to continue on. Okay, and then we've got how we would graph. When we're talking about graphing with inequalities, if you're graphing a solution to an equation, it's just a single point, but with an inequality, it's a range of numbers. And you have your inequality symbols that kind of tell you which directions that you can graph in. So if it's the greater than or less than symbol, there's no line underneath it for equal to, then it's going to be an open circle. It means it starts at that value, but it doesn't include that value. That value is not a part of the actual solution. So for example, if I say, hey, we've got x is greater than 3. X is greater than 3. Then I have my little number line here. Okay, in the center I've got a 0, and I've got 1, 2, here's where 3 would be, 4, I got -1, -2, -3. Okay, I've got all of these points here. When I'm showing that x is greater than 3, then right at the value 3, I'm going to put an open circle above the 3 to show I'm starting there, but I'm not including it. 3 is not one of my solutions. It just starts there. And since it says it's going to be greater than, what direction do you think that we're going to go? To the right. Right? The arrow is pointing us in the direction that we now need to go. So that's showing that everything that is above that value is a solution. So like 3.000000001, that would be a solution because it's greater than 3. Okay, so this is an open circle and it's graphing itself to the right. If we had something like x is less than 1, then again, we have all of these values here. With x being less than 1, I would again have an open circle. It would be an open circle, but this time I would go to the left because the arrow is pointing in the lesser directions. So even though I'm starting at 1, 1 is not included as part of my solution. But everything that is smaller than the value of 1 is considered to be a possible solution for x. Now, when we are dealing with the less than or equal to and greater than or equal to, there's the extra added effort of writing the equal to line under it. So that means there's the extra added effort of closing the circle. So you draw the circle, but this time you fill the circle in because now it is equal to that value. So if I were to say again, I have x is greater than or equal to a positive 3, and I've got my nice little number line here. I would now go ahead and do a closed circle at 3. So I draw my circle at 3, but now I'm going to go the extra effort of filling that circle in, and I graph everything to the right. So that is closed and to the right. And if I had x is less than or equal to 1, then again, having my extra effort, I would have to close the circle at 1 and draw everything to the left. So there is a difference between having an open and closed circle. Closed circles mean they include. So this is closed and to the left. Closed circles include the equal sign underneath it. Now, it's also really important to note that you want to make sure that when you are graphing, that you always graph with the variable on the left side. So remember when we were solving equations, I said, hey, sometimes you might have to do a rewrite. So we would rewrite it so that the variable's on the left and the number's on the right. The reason for that is so when we get to this, the variable's always on the left side. The graphing is easier. The arrow points in the direction it needs to be. Patrick, put that away. Okay, if the variable's on the left side, the arrow is pointing in the correct direction. So let me show you what I mean. If we have 4 is greater than x, when I look at that, I'm like, oh, my arrow is pointing to the right, so I'm going to graph it greater than. But it says 4 is greater than x. If I rewrite this, then when I rewrite by flipping everything. That's the important thing to make sure I know. I am flipping everything. That means that instead of 4 being greater than x, it's now going to be x is what? Less than 4. Okay? If 4 is greater than x, then the opposite is x is less than 4. You're creating the absolute flipped version of it. And then now that I have it in that version, I know when I graph it, it's actually going to the left, not to the right. It allows me to see how to properly graph. So if we're taking a look at problem number 1, says x is greater than 1. Before I start graphing anything, I want to identify whether I'm dealing with an open or closed circle and whether I'm graphing to the left or to the right. And I also want to see if I need to rewrite anything. So first question to ask, does this need to be a rewrite? No, does not need to be a rewrite because it has a variable on the left side. So now, second question, is it open or closed circle? Rajay? Open. It is an open circle. Okay, so at the value +1, we're going to draw an open circle above. Okay, now looking at the arrow, are we going to go to the left or to the right? To the right. Okay, it's pointing to the right. We're going to graph to the right. So starting at the 1, at the open circle, we're going to make our graph and follow it all the way to the right. Okay, you're going to do problems 2, 3, and 4 on your own. Don't forget that if it needs to be a rewrite, you rewrite first. But before you do that, I want to take a look at problem 5. Taking a look at problem 5, I'm going to go through and create the expression, the x is greater than, or the x is less than, or the x is greater than or equal to, or x is less than or equal to, and the value. Okay, so here we're dealing with an open circle, right? This was an open circle. It was graphed to the right. So what inequality symbol represents an open circle to the right? Addison?
X greater than 1?
-1, good. X is greater than -1. Open and to the right is a greater than symbol. Open and to the right is going to be a greater than symbol. So we know it's going to be our variable. So in this case we chose x. It's greater than, and then the value that we were at was -1. So x is greater than -1. You're going to do problems, or you're going to just finish off the rest of this page. All the rest of the questions, finish those off by either graphing or writing what the inequality is from the graph. Okay, so taking a look here for problem number 2, the first thing that you should have done was a rewrite. Please don't forget that when you do the rewrite, you are not only reversing the order that you're writing the variable and the number, but you are also having to flip the inequality. So that inequality is no longer a greater than or equal to, it is now a less than or equal to. Less than or equal to. So with the less than or equal to, we are now dealing with a closed circle, and it's graphing itself to the left. So at -2, you should have a closed circle filled in and graphing itself all the way to the left. For problem number three, you also had to do a rewrite. You also had to complete a rewrite. So the x is now on the left side, the 5 is now on the right side, and again, we are going to reverse the inequality symbol. So instead of less than or equal to, it's now greater than or equal to. With greater than or equal to, that is a closed circle, and it is graphing itself to the right. Closed circle to the right. So starting at 5, I'm going to draw my circle, I'm going to close it, and then I'm going to graph to the right. For problem number 4, we do not need to do a rewrite. X is in the correct location. So we have x is less than 4.5. Less than means it's a open circle, and we're going to graph it to the left. At 4.5, which is halfway between 4 and 5, we're going to have an open circle, and we're going to graph it all the way to the left. Okay, open circle all the way to the left. Okay? All right, for problem number 6, with problem number 6, we have a closed circle, and it is graphing itself to the left. So when it is closed and it is moving to the left, what inequality symbol do we use for closed and to the left? Giancarlos? Less than or equal to. This is a less than, or equal to. Less than or equal to, so it has to have the line underneath it. So we're going to have x is less than or equal to, and then the value is a 2. X is less than or equal to 2. For problem number 7, it is an open circle, but it's going to the left. Open circle, and it moves to the left. What inequality symbol is an open circle to the left? Jacqueline? Less than. Just the less than symbol. Less than is open, and then to the left. So we're going to have x is less than positive 7. X is less than positive 7. Okay, load it into Google Classroom. You have 3 IXL skills practicing these concepts.